and I am a vampire, but I need plasma, which I will suck through my hands because that is more palatable to studio executives. Blech! Hi, I'm David, and I created Dave Display's Model Behavior. Have you ever thought of doing a parody introduction, only to have then realized that it was too much effort to sit down and write something funny? Well, this is what happens. And that was a parody of the Todd McFarlane Spawn introductions. Do you remember those from the 90s? Did anyone else besides me watch those? I had to buy video cassettes from a store that had like two episodes on each, and they cost like over 10 quid. Why did I do that? I didn't even like them very much. Still did. Anyway, that's what this one is going to be about. That's what the show, this episode is going to be all about. We are going to be talking about Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. For a time, the greatest or best-selling comic ever made. And this, you can tell as you look through it, was Todd McFarlane just basically warming up his digits to get ready to launch Spawn. Todd McFarlane goes hardcore horror with Spider-Man, doing stories and themes and things that you would have never really expected. So if you're interested in intense body horror, voodoo hypnosis, child murderers, and general horrific imagery, then join me for the next few minutes and enjoy. Well, I say enjoy. That was Garth Marenghi, Dark Place. That was a parody within a parody. That's what we do now. Alright folks, so we're talking Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. I'm going to do a kind of a Todd McFarlane build-a-wave, basically. We have all the figures from Marvel, from Hasbro, that would encompass a Todd McFarlane wave. So let's take a look at what would go into a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man wave. First and foremost, of course, you can't have a Spider-Man wave without Peter Parker, the amazing Spider-Man himself. Now, of course, the question is, which Peter Parker do we go for? Do we go for classic, good old-fashioned, tried, true, tested, much beloved, and impossible to stand right now, Pizza Spider-Man? Oh, you know what? Fine. You want to fall over? Fall over. Or do we go for the new and shiny vintage Spider-Man? Oh, gosh, you know, it's almost Sophie's choice, isn't it? Which one is better? Well, you know what? Honestly, it might not be a popular opinion, but I'm going to go pizza. I know people are thinking, what are you talking about? There's so much articulation in the new one. The retro Spidey is so articulate. Well, I'm not being very articulate right now. But yeah, I know that there's a lot to love about the vintage Spider-Man, but look at the eyes. Look at the eyes of Pizza Spider-Man. The eyes have it. I get that the smaller retro wave ones are, you know, sort of classic vintage Spidey, but I don't want classic vintage. I want 90s. I want the grim, gritty excess of the 90s, and that's where Pizza Spider-Man just comes in and just cleans house. This is the Spider-Man I'm talking about when it comes to Todd McFarlane's big-eyed, spaghetti-webbing Spider-Man. Now, before you all fire in telling me, but Dave, there is an almost official Todd McFarlane Marvel Legends Spider-Man figure. Yep, I know. He came out with the San Diego Comic-Con Raft box set, which is a beautiful box set. I really lament the fact that I don't have it, but unfortunately, there you go. So yes, that Spider-Man Raft figure, it is the Pizza Spider-Man, but it's been tweaked to just make it a little bit more Todd McFarlane-y. The eyes are more McFarlane. The blue is a slightly darker blue. It's a great-looking figure, which I do not own yet. But believe me, I hope that I will pick it up one day, because then, yes, my 90s collection will be complete. Now, of course, the first villain that Spider-Man encounters in the Todd McFarlane run is the Lethal Lizard. This is, of course, in the Torment storyline, and oh, it is tormenting to read. We've got the Lizard Build-A-Figure right here, and oh my goodness, I love this guy. And a lot of people don't. I can appreciate that a lot of people dislike the Velociraptor Lizard T-Rex head. It's Dino Lizard, and a lot of people just kind of, aren't cool with that. I can appreciate it, but I can't agree with it because I love Dino Lizard. Look at the detail on the sculpting here. Look at the little scale marks, the eyes. It's so much love has gone into this. The little rivulets, the wrinkles on the neck. I adore this lizard. I think it's terrific. The other big gripe that people have is he is not easy to stand. These double jointed feet, same problem with the beast, is that it's not, I mean, you would love to stand him on the tips of his toes like this, but it's just not going to work. Or it can do, but that's where he has one thing going for him, which is his tail. You can plant the tail down and it's going to act as kind of a ballast for him, but again, it doesn't work great. Other parts of the figure that I think work fantastically is the beautiful sculpting and the shading on his reptilian skin, his hands. It's not all just one color. You've got the lighter greens here, which have been nicely airbrushed. And again, just the detail, the little rivulets and the scales. Oh, it looks so good. One thing that is lacking though, when talking about, paint jobs and what have you, is his human clothes. First of all, he lives in the sewers, yet has the whitest white lab coat. There's a little bit of what I'd call like coffee staining down here, which gives it some sort of depth and detail, but then it's just immaculately white up here. And I'm thinking, come on guys, you could have done a much better job of airbrushing this and giving it some more detail. The same kind of goes for the purple pants. Purple pants, yeah, they look fine. Nice detail on, you got the seam there and the bulging, ripping sort of effect. Again, that's terrific, but there's not really any kind of sort of nuance to the paint job itself. We could have gone for some more detail there. That notwithstanding, going back to the head sculpt, check out, we've got the long lizard tongue, which is lovely soft bendy plastic, and the articulating jaw, which again I think adds so much to the figure. This is a big favorite of mine. So the lizard, yeah, he's the antagonist, was one of the antagonists in the first story arc called Torment. And oh gosh, it's hard work to get through. It's 5 issues of Spider-Man fighting the lizard, who is being mind controlled by Calypso, who's a new character that's revealed as a former lover of Kraven the Hunter.
And I've got to say that Calypso is a character that I really am quite fond of, and I think it's a shame that we haven't seen more of her. We haven't really seen her since she appeared in a brief post-Clone Saga story. But she's great. She's like a voodoo priestess type character. Her costume is what people would often refer to as kind of cheesecake. It's kind of like a stripper version of Kraven's, but I'm not mad about it. And gosh, if we got a Marvel Legends version of her, that would be fantastic.
It's just, and also they're being hypnotized by this sort of sound that she's making, this doom, 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 and it's just going on throughout the entire comic, doom, doom, doom. And at one point there's a splash page with Spider-Man just saying like, stop! And I feel like, yep, that's the entire reader base after 5 issues of this. So a dubious start for Todd McFarlane. But after that, business starts to pick up because we bring out the Hobgoblin. So here we have Hobgoblin as he is in the transition into becoming the Demogoblin, or being taken over by that demonic entity. This is where we go into the body horror side of things, and it's really kind of cool. I dig body horror. It creeps me out, but I kind of like being creeped out. So this was what happened when Marvel were doing their Inferno storyline, and New York was being taken over by all these demons and whatnot. And Hobgoblin was having some performance anxiety issues, so he basically allowed a demon to sort of, give him his power, which of course is one of those Faustian monkey's paw type wishes, because he becomes possessed by this demonic entity, and thus he starts to transform into the Demogoblin. So at this stage, this isn't even his a mask, this is his actual face. Now then, big difference here for this figure, of course, is the big chunky glider. Look at this. This is the glider from the Toy Biz Hobgoblin figure. Why? Because this is the glider from Marvel Legends Hasbro. Can you see Can you see why I might have changed them over? Yeah? Size does matter. This little flimsy piece of plastic cannot hold a candle to this big, beautiful, gorgeous, chonky glider here. Look at the detailing, the sculpting on there. It's almost quite sort of, alien looking. Geiger, that's it, HR Giga or Geiger looking sculpting on here, where it's kind of like a biomechanical looking thing. Just so cool. In this storyline, we have the Demogoblin is kidnapping people, and again, this is where we go into the deep sort of horror that Todd McFarlane would totally then carry over into Spawn. He's kidnapping sinners and essentially just, killing them, and he adopts this boy. He smothers his mother to death, which is lovely, and then he adopts and then starts to kind of manifest his demonness into the boy, and the boy starts to turn into a sort of a hobgoblin demon as well. Pretty nasty, pretty gory body horror, and again, it's good fun. Now, one thing you're going to notice the hobgoblin is missing here is his pumpkin bomb, and I do have it. But the reason why he's missing it for now is because the hand is just not designed to hold it. It will just about sort of rest there, but it will fall out so easily. I am amazed that I haven't lost this pumpkin bomb yet. So there, but by the grace of God, we still have the pumpkin bomb. Now later on in the story, his glider gets smashed and he manifests the fire glider, which you can just about see in the back of my 90s display that the complete Demogoblin is riding. I'm not going to dig him out because what are you going to do? It's like building a house of cards. I don't want to disrupt it that much. So I'm going to place Hobgoblin over here, my nice little mock impromptu Hobgoblin stand. But of course you're wondering, who's responsible for destroying his original glider? Well, if we're dealing with demonic possession, there's only one guy who Spider-Man can turn to, and that is, of course, the Ghost Rider. Oh, and isn't this just a gorgeous figure? You guys know that I love this figure. I've done a full review of him before already. Timber! And don't worry, guys, you made a good sacrifice because this guy deserves the space. He deserves the screen time. I'm not going to go into too much detail because you've heard me rant and rave about how this is one of my absolute favorite Marvel Legends figures. So gorgeous, so beautiful. All the translucent fire effects, the wash on the skull, just, kills it. Absolutely knocks it out of the park, Hasbro. More like this, please. So that's my briskly rearranged and fixed up Spider-Man Todd McFarlane wave so far, but we're only about halfway through the run, and if you thought that Torment was a long, painfully drawn out storyline, just you wait. It's time for a crossover, and who better to cross over with Spider-Man than Marvel's other big-time 90s franchise player, Wolverine. Now, this Wolverine figure is a bit of a kit bash, actually. We have the Hulk 80th Anniversary 2-pack body here, because my 90s Wolverine is over at the X-Men display, and I don't want to move him. And the head is from the Vintage Wave brown costume Wolverine. I kind of like that Wolverine in this storyline, Perceptions it's called, you find out why later. He starts off in his brown costume because he's kind of like giving himself a timeout from the X-Men, and then his costume gets shredded and he goes back to the yellow and blue. Now then, it's called Perceptions because things aren't always what they seem. Again, it's a 5-parter, and it doesn't need to be a 5-parter. Anyway, before I go into the other featured player, we'll just take a quick little look at this figure, because this is, I feel kind of bad for this original Wolverine because he came out with the Hulk 80th Anniversary 2-pack, and basically everyone bought that 2-pack for the Hulk because who needed another Wolverine? Oh, also, yes, speaking of kit bash, I've got the retracted hood from the 3-pack, the Love Triangle 3-pack, which I think works really, really well for this figure. I didn't like the retro Wolverine face design, the mask design with like little whiskers. It just looks a bit silly. So that's kind of retracted, and now he does very well as a 90s Wolverine. So I have 2 90s Wolverines, one for my X-Men display and one for my 90s Spider-Man display. And I think he fits very, very well there. So I said that this story was called Perceptions, but what are we having perceptions about? Well, we are having perceptions about big bad beasties. That's right. Let me move Spider-Man out of the way here because we got to back this thing up. Oh my goodness, we need some real estate space for this guy. Whew! It is the Wendigo bath. I need to move Lizard back as well. My goodness, there's just no room. There's no room, guys. I'm sorry. I'll rearrange you later. Look, this guy is amazing. This is what a bath should be. So in the Perception storyline, basically there's a bunch of children being murdered in Canada. Isn't that lovely? Thanks, Todd McFarlane. That's what we need in our Spider-Man comics is child murder. So basically all these kids are being murdered and it's being pinned on Bigfoot. And of course, Wendigo is a prime suspect. So all these animals, this is a really funny thing in the storyline, all these animals are being shot by hunters who are trying to capture Bigfoot. And Wolverine's like, hey, I'm going to come to Canada to stop the needless slaughter of all these poor defenseless animals. Let me ask you, is Wolverine a vegetarian? Has Wolverine ever mentioned anything about animal rights or, anything remotely like that? Hunters are killing animals. Unless you are like a card-carrying vegetarian Wolverine, you don't really have this moralistic, stance to take. If you eat meat, then you really are being a bit of a hypocrite by saying like, oh, you can't go around killing animals, bub. No, don't get on. You get off your high horse, basically. But yeah, so Wendigo is copping all the heat for these child murders, and Spider-Man is sent by the Daily Bugle to Canada to investigate this. So he teams up with Wolverine to find out who the real killers are and clear Sasquatch's name. And to be honest, you can't blame people for thinking it might be Sasquatch, because look at this guy. He's terrifying in the best way. I dig this bath. This is what a big chunky bath should be. This is why you buy a whole wave of figures to get something that looks this spectacular. A lot of people didn't care for the head sculpt, which I can appreciate. It's a bit of a different take on Sasquatch. I think he normally has like a wider kind of head. But look at the sculpting in this. I mean, you've got to forgive it for the beautiful wash of colors, the blood-stained teeth. He does have my kind of... He got the same haircut I had in the 90s with the little center-parting curtains going on there. But, that notwithstanding, the blue wash is beautiful. Unfortunately, like any bright white figure, he's going to show up any blemishes. So there's a few little bits here and there which kind of stand out. But you've got to admit, this is a stunningly beautiful character and a beautiful bath. Well, one thing that I thought was very amusing in the story is that after 3 issues of Spider-Man and Wolverine just kind of swinging around the forests and swamps and marshland in Canada, like Spider-Man saying boy, I've got to get this thing sorted out soon because I don't want it to be like another colossal wild goose chase waste of time like that whole thing with the lizard was. And it's like, are you echoing what the entire reader base is thinking? Because we're all going, yeah, that was a colossal, painful waste of time. And he even sort of acknowledges it. It's like, yeah, I don't want to have to go through all this again. Now we move on to our final little story arc for Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man run. And that is one including our favorite vampire, Morbius. I've covered Morbius before in a previous review, but essentially in the storyline, all these people are disappearing from New York. They're being kidnapped and dragged away by this brutish, terrifying-looking guy. And this is where you can see Todd McFarlane's artwork he's in full-on Spawn mode now. And going from the previous story arc, which was all about child murderers, eventually the murderer turns out to be like this police chief captain, very reminiscent of Captain Irons in Resident Evil 2. This one, the McFarlane storyline came out beforehand, so, kudos to that. No copying, just, a similarity. Anyway, people are disappearing, and it turns out that they're being dragged down into the sewers by this group of people, basically. I'm trying to think of the word of a group of people. It's not culture, it's society, I guess. Anyway, they're bringing people to Morbius, and Morbius will eat them and in return protect the people. It's not a great storyline. Again, kind of silly, I suppose. Spider-Man, swoops in to, sort of find out where these people are going and what's happening. And Morbius is like, yeah, it's all right. I told them to get people for me, but I said make sure they're all bad people. And it's like, what? What did you think? Did you think your goons were doing background checks or something? And then he's horrified at the end to find out that they weren't bad people. It's just that the subterranean dwellers who were kidnapping them just assumed that all surface people are bad. And he's like, no, I have been killing good people. It's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Anyway, this brings to a close Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man run, and with it, Todd McFarlane's makeshift Spider-Man wave that I have here. How would this be for a Marvel Legends wave? I mean, of course, it wouldn't really qualify as a wave, as you have, two Build-A-Figure worthy characters here, plus a Marvel Legends rider, but what a sexy wave it is. Anyway, this I think is terrific. Far better than the actual Todd McFarlane Spider-Man run. In my personal opinion, style over substance in there. Todd McFarlane, incredible artist, but not so much with the writing. But still, I love building and putting together sort of makeshift waves. I think it's really fun. So, look, behold, ladies and gentlemen, the Dave Displays model behavior, Todd McFarlane Spider-Man wave. So in conclusion, that was Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. Relatively short-lived, but it made an impact. And I think what it showed to the world was that Todd McFarlane was an artist of a generation. Whether you liked his art style or not, it was quintessentially Todd McFarlane. When you see it, it's like, I know who drew that. Spawned legions of imitators since then, but one an original. I give all the credit in the world. Todd McFarlane, top tier, amazing comic book artist. Terrible writer. I'm sorry. I have no time for Todd McFarlane's writing. It's just, it's pretentious. It's so pretentious, and this is from a guy who knows what being pretentious is. I got no time for that. It seems like he will just conjure up a cool thing to draw, but there's not like much interesting reason or story behind it. I mean, God, Torment was rightfully named because for like 5 issues, that was a torment to get through. Just, it was a wordy slog of nothing happening. Like, I read the synopsis before rereading it for the first time in like 20 years, and the synopsis was so short. I was like, what else happens? There must be more to it than that. There's not. It's just, nope, that's it. So yeah, Todd McFarlane, incredible artist, but maybe not so much of a great storyteller. Also, you can see in his artwork, like not only was he warming up for Spawn, he was pretty much doing his designs for Spawn, while doing these comics. That there are characters and looks and even panels that almost look like just shot for shot, line for line remakes. And I'm not even going to knock him for that because they look terrific. And he's copying his own work. So there's not really plagiarism. You drew something that looks awesome. People love it. Just draw it again, slightly differently. You can see the love and the artistry in what he's doing on the page. The detail, the line work. It's beautiful. So don't get the wrong impression. Todd McFarlane, as you watch this, as I'm sure you'll be doing, incredible, iconic artist, like of a generation. Lousy storyteller, but great artist. So Todd McFarlane, Spider-Man run, what a time it was. Will I revisit it again? Definitely not, but it made some awesome Marvel Legends figures. So guys, thanks for joining me on this trip down memory lane. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Message me, tell me, what did you think of Todd McFarlane's crazy horror-themed run on Spider-Man? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was garbage? Do you hate his artwork and love his writing? There must be someone out there like that. Either way, comment below, let me know. And if you have any other interesting runs, writer, artist runs on a comic book that you think, that spawned some great Marvel Legends, let me know. Hit me up and I'll think about doing a video on those as well. And in the meantime, guys, thanks for watching and keep being Marvelous Legends.